Hey, what's going on, patrons? This is Lawrence Yo from More to That, and I am here today with a video reflection, trying something new because fuck it, why not, right? um, I know that we've kind of been progressively moving towards more, I guess, intimacy in these things. So I did an AMA in January. I've been doing mostly text-based reflections, but I just figured, hey, let's just make it, the real deal, and you could see my big old face while I talk and do all this stuff. So let me know what you think about it. If you want more of this kind of stuff, and also I was thinking that maybe one of these days we can do a Zoom chat where some of us patrons can get together and just discuss whatever kind of anything's free game. I did a phone call for patrons like months ago, but it was cool, but it was sparsely attended. So I don't know if there is an appetite for that kind of thing. So you could just let me know in the comments, or you could just message me, and then we'll figure something out. So this thing is going to be just unedited. I'm just gonna talk the whole way through, just as if I was writing out a reflection, and then that way you could, I guess, think of it as some sort of conversation in a sense, and you could let me know your thoughts on whatever I spew out here. So today I want to talk a little bit about burnout. So the general concept of burnout. And this was actually inspired because yesterday I watched a interesting documentary called The Burnout Society. And it centers around a South Korean born German philosopher named Byung-Chul Han. So I was interested in this guy because I don't know many prominent East Asian contemporary philosophers, if any. So knowing that someone like him existed made me just interested in trying to understand his ideas and who the guy is. And I came across this documentary where he basically put out a book, I guess, The Burnout Society, and he was doing a tour in Korea to just talk about the book and also just to get his ideas out there. So the documentary just follows him as he starts off in Berlin because he's a professor in Germany, and then it follows him towards all the way to Korea, where he then kind of gives talks, and he's just kind of roaming around Seoul doing his thing. So the main thesis of his book, well, first of all, it primarily has to do with the fact that, okay, his observation that we live in what he calls a burnout society. And, that in itself, that concept in itself is not too revelatory. I think we all have this general intuition now that we are burning ourselves the fuck out and kind of in this perpetual state of exhaustion, especially in developed countries. So he makes the case that in Korea, this is especially pernicious because Korea used to be a primarily agrarian culture. And as recently as the 1950s or 1960s, it was, one of the most impoverished countries in the world. And now it is one of, it has to have broken the top 10 economies of the world. And it's just like this rich cultural influx, and there's so much being exported out of Korea in terms of just pure culture, like K-pop, Korean dramas, all this stuff. So, and I'm Korean, so I know all this stuff and familiar with it. And it's just been a trip to see just how widespread, this nation's stuff has been. Like I see BTS, before the pandemic hit, I used to go swimming a lot, and I would just hear BTS playing on the loudspeakers at the pool, and everyone just like, yeah, like vibing out and stuff. So it's just weird. It's just very weird. But that's been the reality of Korea. This kind of stratospheric rise to the top, really. And Byung-Chul Han argues that this has come at the expense or at the price of this perpetual exhaustion and this need to be productive in Korean society, which for the most part is pretty true. So Korea has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, I think, if not the highest. And it's especially true with high school students as well. So kids that are under immense pressure to have to succeed, and to have to take these exams and go to the best college and get the best job and so on and so forth. So this is all really ingrained within Korean culture. So Byung-Chul Han, he takes this general sentiment or this general view, which is not just about Korea, but is also seen in various first world countries, particularly in the West. He emphasizes particularly in the West, and especially nations that have capitalism so ingrained within their economic system. And he makes the interesting observation that what actually keeps societies in this hamster wheel of productivity is the desire for freedom. So that seems counterintuitive, right? Because freedom would imply you do whatever the hell you want to do. You have this general state of contentment, a relaxed mind, a free mind. But he argues that this desire for freedom is actually a mechanism for control. So now, he breaks that down by further kind of taking this example and saying, look, when you say that you want to be free, so let's just say, for example, for your career, let's just take your kind of stereotypical entrepreneur who wants to be his or her own boss. Now, the sentiment is that I want to be free. I want to have total freedom over what I work on. So this is what I get to do. And I am my own boss. No one has control over my time, only myself. That's the dream, right? So the thing is, even if there's no external influence that has no control over you, Byung-Chul Han says that the internal locus of control is actually what will start exploiting you. So I'll unpack that a little bit. There's a sense that when you are completely free to do what you want to do, the thing that will actually control you is yourself. And no one is a harsher critic or demands more of you than yourself. So if you are essentially doing things on your own accord and working because you are free, you are actually, in a sense, exploiting yourself, because every moment you have in the day, every minute, hour, has to be dedicated toward being productive so you can succeed with your freedom. So it's like this kind of cyclical thing where when you have freedom, it's actually a way of controlling yourself. And when you feel like you have control over yourself, you want to have freedom, right? So it's like this kind of perpetual loop that basically just ends in this, it just never ends. It's the kind of this cyclical thing where in the end, all you are is just burnt the fuck out. So this is actually something I touched on in my last text reflection in February called Taming the Inner Critic, where this inner critic is this part of you that just tells you, hey, I need you to work on this. I need you to do better. I need you to push the envelope. You need to continue to work, blah, 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 to a point where you just get exhausted. And it's your inner voice telling you what you need to do always. There's no one that's harsher to you than yourself. And that's the general sentiment. And so the kind of crux or the conclusion really to Byung-Chul Han's argument is that capitalism as a system promises freedom. And freedom on its surface sounds like something we all want. But in reality, that freedom is actually what controls the population to make sure that everyone is doing as much as they can to be the most productive as possible, to create the most wealth as possible, so that the system keeps flourishing. But the expense, of course, the price of that is one's mental health, is one's energy, and basically this continuous desire that you have to do more, that you have to succeed. And I've been thinking about this a lot because, so I work on more to that essentially full time now. So I don't no longer work at my corporate gig. And the thing that I've kind of understood is that I do more to that with the sense of, okay, I have creative freedom. I have no one to answer to. I abide by whatever schedules that I set. But actually, because I care about the endeavor so much more, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it's something that I am just pouring myself into, then this inner voice of, you got to keep on producing, dude. You got to just keep on going. And, oh, don't think about resting. No, leisure. No, no. You got to make sure that you put your head down and keep working. Oh, yeah, you better keep doing that. Like, that voice there, that inner critic, is really loud when there is no external influence telling you what you need to do. So, and that inner critic will be louder than anybody else. And this is the cost of freedom and of creative freedom, or anything where you get to do what you want to do. So as a result, you find yourself thinking about work way more than you need to. You have a hard time separating your leisure time from your work time, because when you have the freedom to do whatever, chances are you will feel bad about your leisure time. You will feel that, oh, this is time that is not spent doing something productive. And by the word productive, you mean something that's contributing to your work or your career. So anything that is not in that sphere feels like you're wasting your time. So there is no real delineation between leisure and work when you have complete freedom. And I've had to really internalize this when it comes to my own work with More to That. And there's this kind of, there's this thing amongst creators, especially with writers these days that I've seen, where everyone really harps on like consistency, right? And there is truth to that. There is truth to the fact that, yes, you have to put out stuff on a consistent basis. If you want to build an audience and you want to continue that kind of growth and have it compound and stuff, you're just putting out stuff consistently. But it takes away really from the heart of it if all you are doing is focusing on that consistency of like, oh, every Tuesday or Wednesday I gotta put up something new, or 3 days a week I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Because then it's that inner critic, right? It's that voice saying that, like, oh, you just gotta push something out ASAP. No matter what, you gotta make sure you publish, you gotta make sure you ship. And that colors the way that you view your work. You stop viewing it as this artistic endeavor, and then you start mechanizing yourself. You start mechanizing the way that you approach your work and your mindset around it. And you no longer think about producing stuff that really took a lot of energy and instead of quality, you focus more on the quantity. So you start viewing your work as this kind of piecemealed effort to put out whatever is in your head as soon as possible. And, what's interesting is that when you think about your favorite artists or your favorite creatives, like I think about my favorite, say, film directors or something, I don't like their work because they put out a film every year, right? Like because they have some sort of schedule they're abiding by. No, I like it because they made a really, really good film. Like, I like Quentin Tarantino because he made fucking Reservoir Dogs. Not because every November I could expect the film from him. Because he made something that's classic. And you think about any of the creatives you love and admire, you probably had that same kind of viewpoint. But when it comes to our own work, or as creators, we kind of lose sight of that and instead focus on, oh, I have to just put something out. And this is just further contributing to what Byung-Chul Han calls the Burnout Society. So the way I've kind of really put this into practice, and and things may shift too. This is all an experiment. I'm just trying out various things and seeing what works best for me. But it's like I will put out shorter form posts that I could put out on a more frequent basis. And then I'll take some time, like a few weeks or something like that, to work on just one post. because that's my way of really investing the time and energy necessary to produce something of quality. So, yeah, this is all interesting to consider. This kind of inner desire or inner drive to have to always be doing something and to always have to prove to somebody else or some audience or what have you that you are working all the time. And it's interesting to kind of understand where that comes from and how it's tied to freedom. And there's very little you could say when it comes to having an argument against freedom, right? Freedom is kind of this ultimate cherished value. But when you think about kind of the human nature and human proclivity to be hard on yourself and to feel like you always have to be in this state of production and also immersed in a society where that kind of production is rewarded, then you have to start questioning a lot of the motives behind why you do what you do. If you really are doing this because if you feel creatively fulfilled, it's important to recognize that, that alongside that comes time and this gestation periods and incubation. You don't just take whatever is in your head and just splurt it onto a canvas and then just package it up and ship it and you're done. No, a lot of these things take time, and a lot of time comes through reflection. And reflection doesn't look like work. That's the thing. We have this very stereotypical way we view work. If you're not typing away, you're not working. If you're just sitting on your couch looking off into space, like that's not work. But in reality, all those things apply to the creative process. And this is something that I wrote about in my post, Creativity Starts Before Anything Is Made. It's that creativity for the most part is kind of the last step, or not creativity, but the actual production process is the last step in this long process of you absorbing information, processing it, sitting with it, looking at it from different viewpoints, angles, and then taking that and really, putting that on whatever canvas you're used to. So all that to say that it's important really to kind of put a check on what your motivations are. If you feel like creative freedom or the sense of freedom is what you're after, also understand that there is this kind of self-exploitative nature of that, where you will feel like, okay, now there's this compulsion to always have to produce because you have to live up to that standard of freedom. So just kind of keep that in mind. And I know that burnout is a very real thing. It affects many, many people. And too often we just feel like, okay, I just need to take a week break and then I'll feel replenished. But the reality is that the risk of that is always there. And it's more about how the texture of your mind as you go through your day. And if you can actually set aside moments where you feel like you're at a much more calm state instead of feeling like you're always creating or always have to do this or that, and being able to balance those kind of poles as you go through your days. So that was a big spiel, just kind of off the top of my head, really. And yeah, let me know what you think. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to drop a line. You could always message me on Patreon. And I say this time and time again, but I really, really mean it. Just thank you for your support through this whole time and just really being along with the journey. It really means a lot. And also let me know if you guys would like that Zoom meetup or just an opportunity for us to all get together and maybe talk with one another or something like that. So anyway, all right. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll talk soon. Bye.